language in this country.
Well, that was one clash of the candidates last night here in California, where the two Republican frontrunners mixed it up over Social Security and electability. Well, joining us now is Reince Priebus. He's chairman of the Republican National Committee. Chairman Priebus, let me ask you this question, which is, are you at all concerned right now that the Republican primary is going to get too nasty at some point, nasty enough that you'll feel the need to step in and try to calm folks down?
You know, Chuck, I'm not. I actually think it's pretty exciting stuff, and, you know, it sure does beat another speech from Barack Obama tonight before a big game. You know, my Packers are playing tonight, so we're excited about that, but we got to listen to another speech first from this president who's in love with speeches, and I'd rather have the excitement of last night where you have real solutions and people talking about, you know, trade regulations. We're talking about the EPA, talking about how to get business taxes down so that we can employ more people in this country. So, you know what, as I said before, I'm a big believer in these primaries. I think having a rigorous debate and, yeah, a little sparring once in a while is good, too. I think it shows life, it shows excitement, and that's what people are talking about. And I think you're going to see that, Chuck, as we move forward. You're going to see people talking more about the Republican primary, because talking about another speech from Obama, well, that's just not news anymore.
All right, before you took this job, you were chairman of the Wisconsin Republican Party. You just made reference to the world champion Green Bay Packers. We'll see if they go back-to-back this year. They better. But I want to talk about this issue of Social Security, because I've had a lot of people familiarity with the Ron Johnson-Russ Feingold race that says the argument that Mitt Romney is making against Rick Perry may not work. That Rick Perry, by sort of owning the rhetoric when it comes to Ponzi scheme, isn't going to be turning off voters the way maybe the conventional wisdom crowd thinks it is. Do you buy into that? Is that what you learned out of Ron Johnson-Russ Feingold?
Well, you know what? Here's what I learned from that race. And, you know, I obviously, as chairman of the party, I'm not going to get into refereeing our candidates. But here's what I did, what I have learned from that race, and I think where people at around this country. People understand that the government is making promises right now that it just can't keep. Now, whether you're watching this and you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, I think there's common ground there that the government is making promises it can't keep. So the question is, can we be adults and admit that first? And then secondly, what are we going to do to solve it? And I think Paul Ryan and the Republicans in Congress offered a plan in the 10-year window to tackle the issue of Medicare, how we're going to fund it, how we're going to get real about what the issues are, our 10-year debt window, the deficit. So I would leave it at that, and I think that it's a safe place to go that all of our candidates on stage last night were at in telling the American people that in regard to Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, I think it's pretty clear that we need to start tackling our entitlements. And in fact, the president, I don't know if it was 4 Mondays ago at one of his press conferences around midday, also came back to the realization saying, look, you know what? We might have to tackle our entitlements in this country. And, you know, lo and behold, that's what the Republicans have been trying to do here for the last several years.
Are you concerned? Karl Rove, for instance, yesterday seemed to express concern over the words that Rick Perry's using, saying that the phrase Ponzi essentially makes it so that you can't have the discussion you just described.
Well, you know, Carl's very intelligent, and he's a big help to us too here. And you know, and I'm going to let all of the pundits and the smart people out there voice their opinions. But what I do think is safe ground in this country is having a serious adult conversation about what we're going to do to finance Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And so I think, and my answer to you is that I think it's a good place for our candidates to be, to have different opinions, to have different styles, and let the American people and the Republican voters or independents and whoever vote for our candidates, let them decide who is best to lead this country. Because right now, you know, the wordsmith and the speecher-in-chief isn't getting the job done. And so someone has to step up to the plate and save our country economically.
I want to ask you this about the president's speech and what's being proposed and what they're going to send to Congress. A lot of these proposals are things that Republicans have supported in the past. Does your party risk looking like they don't want to try to help fix the economy if they don't sign on to some of these things that on paper are things that they've been comfortable signing on to in the past, the trade agreements, payroll tax cut, things like that?
Well, I mean, the trade, well, my answer is yeah, I think the Republicans are certainly willing to work with the president on things that where there's common ground. I mean, payroll tax, holiday, you know, I'm not the policy guy. They're going to decide those things. But in general, some of these things may make some sense. I mean, the trade agreements have been sitting on his desk for 3 years. A payroll tax holiday is something that Republicans have talked about. You know, getting these trade regulations square with Colombia and Korea. I mean, obviously, those are things that we agree with. But the problem, Chuck, is that, you know, we've been through this dance before with this president. So we'll see. I mean, we're always saying that. We'll see, we'll see, we'll see, because, as you know, a speech doesn't become a bill, doesn't become policy. So if he's really serious about getting entitlements and trade agreements and regulations under control, then the Republicans will be there. But, again, we'll see. Another speech. So let's just, hey, go Packers, though, buddy.
All right. Reince Priebus, chairman of the Republican National Committee.